He's a customer experience expert, a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. I think this is his 12th book that he has out, if I'm guessing correctly. He writes about customer service, the customer experience, and about amazing experiences and about how to be more amazing just in general. He is also amazing. He is not just all those wonderful things, and he has his own firm. He's also been all kinds of awards as a speaker, in fact, past president of the National Speakers Association, and numerous awards from them on speaking, etc. If you haven't heard him speak, a must that you put that Shep on your list. Shep Hyken is not only all of those things, but he's also one of my personal good friends. And so I'm thrilled that he's here today to talk about his next big book. I think it's number 12. I think. Is it 12?
Well, Skip, you are awesome, and thank you. And I'm honored to be a friend as well, a colleague. And I remember when we first met. Number 12, if you include co-authored books. So there were 5 co-authored. So this is my 7th solo go at it by myself kind of book. Very excited about it. And thanks for your nice words and compliments prior to the show. I really believe, this is a little different than all the other books because it goes beyond typical customer service and experience.
Well, you're just challenging me, Shep, because you're saying, oh, well, if you count the ones that I've co-authored, I've only written one. So you're supposed to slow down, let me catch up. So you keep going. But the book is called The Convenience Revolution, and I had the privilege of reading an early edition. And it is, as I was just saying before we got on camera, that this is the next big Shep Hyken book because I think it hits all the right notes and the challenge that it gives to all of us. But for those just tuning in, don't know what the convenience revolution is, tell us a little bit, what is the convenience revolution and when did it start?
This is right here, The Convenience Revolution. It's the book, and the subtitle is How to Deliver a Customer Service Experience That Disrupts Competition and Creates Fierce Loyalty. So where did the convenience revolution start? We can go all the way back to like 500 some odd AD when Justinian the Great.
You're older than I thought then, Shep.
Yeah. I did my research back in the day. Justinian the Great and the Byzantine Empire said, let's put a store that sells life's necessities on the corner of each major intersection, like over there. It's funny, I could see the chariots going by. And but what it was for the convenience of the citizens, hence the first convenience store of all time. And then we jumped to the 1920s when Southland Corporation down in Dallas had a number of ice stores. They sold ice, blocks of ice to put into the ice box, which was, prior to the refrigerator where we can plug in and have our system. You put a block of ice there. And somebody, his name's Uncle Johnny, an employee, started selling like eggs and bread. One day he set these items on top of the ice and someone said, hey, are those for sale? And he thought about it and he said, sure. And he charged a premium and he realized that people would pay more for convenience. And those stores expanded, and today they're known as 7-Eleven, and there's about 65,000 of these convenience stores around the world. And of course, there's more convenience stores than just 7-Eleven, but to me, that's where the convenience revolution started. And they call it a convenience store because it's convenient, it's on the way, it's on the right side of the street, there's lots of them, and guess what? Smaller, easier to get in and out of, and you typically pay a little bit more, it's a premium, to buy those. Now, not every aspect of companies that sell convenience sell at a higher price, but that was really where the start of it all came from, in my mind.
Well, it is worth it. I think time is money and convenience is important. But I'm interested, convenience, we often think of what's most convenient, but what really gets us is when something is not convenient. And you highlight that right in the get-go with this HVAC story in Warren. And I just love that. Talk about that.
I've done probably 100 interviews on this book. You're the first person to bring that up, and now I have to remember the story. But it's a great story because this gentleman, who's one of our subscribers to the Shepard letter, which is my little newsletter, wrote me. He says, you're not going to believe this. So I get my HVAC checked once a year, and the guy came out and he said, by the way, here's a coupon for the next time you need us to check, hold on to this a year from now, and you'll save like 10 or 20%. He goes, wait a minute. Why do I have to hold on to it? I'm a regular customer. Just give me the discount. And it's like, wow, how inconvenient is that? And By the way, you don't even need technology to manage that type of a discount. But imagine if we said, hey, we've stored a coupon in your record. It'll automatically go live the next time you call us so that you get a 20% discount. I mean, why not do it that way? And that's what companies are doing today, is they're moving toward more convenient ways of taking care of their customers. Yeah, but that was kind of like the antithesis of convenience.
It was the opposite, and I think the reason I identified with it is because we all have those experiences where we're thinking, and you were saying, if you listen through the complaint, you're actually having the seeds for great ideas to improve your business. And I thought, that is so true. And I know running this business that I run, when you listen to those complaints and listen through them, all of a sudden you have this great list. I mean, of just, hey, we could do this, this, and this. And your customers will give you your best ideas. So I love that. Thank you to Warren for your little newsletter, which goes out to tens of thousands of people. And if you haven't signed up for Shep's newsletter, it is an amazing opportunity to up your game. Well, I want to you talk about these 6 principles of this convenience revolution, and I want to go through each and every one ad nauseum so that nobody ever needs to buy the book. No, I do not want to do that. I'm just going to ask you.
Even if we did, if all they wanted was the information, I mean, come on, they will want to buy the book because they want to keep it. They can watch this over and over again, or they could carry this around in their briefcase or next to their heart, or put it on their nightstand for guaranteed. You don't even need a sleeping pill. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It solves all your health challenges if you just keep it near and dear to your heart. Well, you have these 6 principles, and the first one is reducing friction. And I'd love for you to just touch a little bit on that. What is that? Reducing friction.
And by the way, reducing friction, and there are 6 principles, and we'll go through them, and I'll give you examples of each. And the way the book is structured is we set up the background, which we've already talked about with the history of convenience. We talk about the one company that's probably the most convenient company on the planet to do business with, and has their fingers in all 6 of the convenience principles. By the way, a number of companies have all 6, and a number of companies have just one. Doesn't matter if that's the one that's needed for your customer to say, hey, you're really easy to do business with. So reducing friction, that is throughout all 6. However, some companies use reducing friction as their total value proposition. The lead case study I have there is Uber as an example of a company that said, let's make getting a cab more convenient. Where I live, and I know where you live over in Columbus, Ohio, you probably don't just walk out on your street, when you leave your home and say, where's the cab? They're not driving by. You have to call for a taxi. Is that right?
That's right.
Yep. And the dispatcher will say, driver will be there in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And then maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Maybe you have to pick up the phone and say, hey, where's my taxi? Well, with Uber, you open up the app on your phone, you push the button, you see how many drivers are in the area, you type in where you're going to go. And by the way, it's intuitive. So you might type in the first 3 letters of where you're going, and it says, oh, it knows where you're going. It's amazing. And then it tells you how much it's going to be. And before you say, I want to use an Uber driver or a Lyft driver, you accept everything, and you know the fee. Boom. Now you can watch the little driver coming to you on the screen, and there the driver knows your name, takes you where you need to be without you even telling them, and then you get out without having to pay them. You do pay them, just you pay them through their system. You don't have to reach into your pocket. How convenient is that? And they completely disrupted the industry of taxi cabs with the concept of just reducing friction and being more convenient. So reducing friction could be, and in some airports they have CLEAR, C-L-E-A-R. So just as you would pay a little bit more money to get TSA Pre, which allows you to bypass the regular security line at the airport, to supposedly a shorter line, you can pay even a little bit more money and bypass both those lines. And I love CLEAR. There's hardly anybody ever there. When I go there, and by the way, it's like $100 a year. And when you travel every single week like I do, saving 10 minutes or 15 minutes of standing in a line, times 50, 60 trips, which actually it's both directions, times 2 because you got to come home. That's a lot of time you save. So you put your fingers on the scanner and then you show them and this is really, it's kind of almost uncomfortable because they go this way and they let you cut in front of everybody.
But, I love that.
I guess
I would pay dearly. You pay dearly for that.
Yeah. So they
and you could keep doing more and more levels, and we would keep paying, wouldn't we, to get more and more?
We would. I mean, global entry. You pay a little bit of money for a 5-year global entry, and then you have to, of course, get approved. But now when I land from an international flight, it takes me literally, a minute to get through customs, where before if I had to
Even
stand
you?
in line, 45 minutes.
Even you, Shep, they let through?
They every once in a while, and they look at me. Oh, here the true story. Just the other day, I was coming back from Bogota, Colombia, doing a speech, probably about a month or so ago. And the guy knows we're the first plane to land that morning. It's an all-night flight, and I'm one of the first guys through. He goes, "Hey, here's a guy coming in from Bogota. I'm going to pull him over and see what he's got in his bag." So the immigration officer, Homeland Security, pulls me in the room, opens up, looks in my bag. He says, "So you're a motivational speaker." What could which is kind of what I am, but what could I possibly have had in that bag to give them the clue? But they know their stuff. It was amazing. Anyway, I digress.
I may have the answer to that. When they opened your bag and saw that you had nothing in it but the Convenience Revolution books, that was their hint.
You know what? He saw a couple of books. He saw my name. He said, what were you doing in Colombia? He says, "Are you a speaker?" He knew right away when he saw the books. But you're right. That was probably the clue.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Well, the second one is self-service.
Yes.
And not all self-service are actually convenient, are they?
Well, sometimes self-service is like a way to get you to avoid talking to somebody. That's not why you have self-service. You have self-service to make it easier for the customer. And I have a number of examples. I use Panera, the Panera Bread, the restaurant chain that's throughout North America, as a great example of how they actually layered convenience, little bits of layers over time. But self-service might be in a grocery store. You see the areas where you can check out yourself. By the way, notice that whenever you're in the self-service area for checkout at a grocery store or at Home Depot or any of the others, notice there's always a human being from, an employee there to help you if you have trouble. So they want to teach you to use the system and make it easy for you so you don't have to stand in line. But there's an example of self-service. You go online to get support for software. Salesforce, by the way, see Trailblazers, this Salesforce shirt that they gave me, a sweatshirt. They have a great system that allows you to go onto YouTube and type in a question, and there's hundreds, if not 1,000 plus videos, highly produced, well done, not just from Salesforce, but from other companies as well, teaching you, what you need to do to get something done. But Panera, what they did is they said, hey, you stand in line at Panera, just like this is the way it used to be. By the way, you can still stand in line. They give you the choice. And then you could go over to the counter after you place your order, and you wait, they call your name, they give you your bag, you leave. Well, now you don't have to stand in line. You can go over to a little kiosk. You have a choice. If you've done this before, it's very easy. Just order by touching the screen, and you order your food. And then you would go over and wait for them to call your name, but not anymore. They then gave you a pager. And you didn't have to wait for the call. By the way, they found out, hey, Skip or Shep, and they misread, because they're our names. You're Skip, I'm Shep. What happens if you heard Shep and accidentally went over and picked up my food because you thought they said Skip?
I'd get a better order.
Yep. And yeah, you would have gotten a better sandwich without mayonnaise, by the way. So now they give you the pager. And now, no problem, and you can sit anywhere. You don't have to wait near them to hear them. But now, at another level, they have tables with sensors in the table. You set the pager on the table, and now they have somebody bring the food to you, even if it's to go. And interestingly, they didn't cut down any employees. And when I asked the manager, why are you doing this? His answer was, for the convenience of our customers. And they used the engagement out at the tables as a better way to build a relationship with their customers. I go there almost every Friday with my buddies that I work out with early Friday morning, and we hang out there for a quick breakfast. And the girl that brings her food over, or the manager that brings her food over, always recognizes us, welcomes us, and makes us feel like we're at home. So it's a great self-service solution.
It's great. And I think all 6 of these principles, it's really looking and having this strategic view from the lens of the customer, and thinking of it that way instead of thinking this is the way we should do it, or this is the most efficient, or this is the way things will process. It's reversing it and thinking about how do we design everything through their eyes. I think that's what's so amazing about all the examples in your book.
Some of them that we see companies using technology and self-service as ways, as I mentioned, to avoid having to talk to a customer, to maybe be able to reduce personnel. And that's not the reason to do it. It may be a byproduct of it, but we always talk about clients who create technology that's easier for the customer, but then it makes it harder for the employee, that doesn't work either. You've got to be convenient to both employees and customers.
Shep, is it generational as well? I know that I'm watching the next generation, and I'm thinking about some of them who, I won't name my daughter, who will do anything anything it takes to avoid having to interact with that person. I'm amazed. I said, well, go to the library. Just ask the librarian. She'll go to the library, but anything to just avoid having to ask that question. I'll use technology. I'll use the app. I'll download something, but please don't make me interact with somebody. Have you noticed a generational issue?
Well, the generational issue is, if you look at, there's a generation, yours and mine, that are used to going to people. We're baby boomers, and we pretty much all our lives before this technology, and we didn't have mobile phones back when we were younger. And by the way, if you read my first book, which I updated about 5 or 6 years ago, it was like, if you want to get something, a document to somebody fast, fax it.
Fax it. Now what's a fax?
Yeah. And by the way, email me at this long number at CompuServe.com.
That's right.
And wow, have we changed? So today, these kids have grown, my kids, your kids, have grown up being able to have instant access to so much information. And until they have friction and need help, they don't fall back to the human. But you know what? When they need it, that human had better be there.
That's right.
Yep.
Shep, is it possible to be too convenient?
Wow. It is. And I actually talk about it's not impossible to be too convenient unless it's unnecessary to be that convenient. And I'll give you a great example. I'll tell you a story that I read in Harvard Business Review. And I just like saying that I read Harvard Business Review. Yes, I do. So, and it really isn't so much about convenience, but it's about the concept of spending a lot of money on something that's unnecessary. So let's talk about, in general, a company has to have a good product. They have to have good customer service. Convenient takes it to another level. But this particular article was about Walmart, who's also featured in the book in another area. We can talk about them later. But what they did is they found out from their customers, they said, how do you like the store experience? And it's still about customer experience. They had a lot of suggestions. And rather than go out and change 4,500 stores that they have around North America or the world, they said, hey, let's do this. Let's do 1 or 2 stores. So they spent several $1 million on 2 stores, giving what their customers wanted. And what they found was the ratings were much higher, but the sales were the same. Nothing changed as far as sales go. Now, I believe that they probably could have not spent millions of dollars, but maybe a little bit more money, making it a little bit better, making it maybe a cleaner, more modern, maybe a more competitive feel to other stores. But they may not have had to go over the top with some of what they did with all new lighting and widening the corridors that you walk down to, and raising shelves, all different types of things they did to give people more space and less clutter and better lighting. So there is a point that if you're going to invest in convenience, that you should really take a look as to whether or not the investment is going to pay off. Jeff Bezos even talks about this we talk about it in the book as well, that there's a certain point in time where you got to say, we're done with this one, it's not working.
When you mention companies like Amazon, Walmart, people think, well, Walmart, they can steamroll anything, their prices, their systems. Amazon, same thing. What about the little business that says, gosh, I'd love to do some of these things, Shep, but how can I compete with the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world to be more convenient? What do you say to them?
Yeah, the reality is I think smaller businesses have a tremendous advantage. They may not be able to afford the technology, but they actually, between what technology is available at a less expensive level and the ability to build a relationship as a small business to their customer, they have a really competitive advantage. But I'll give you a great example. One of the areas is delivery. So we've talked about reducing friction. We've talked about self-service. Delivery is actually the 5th area. And my car dealership actually out-convenienced a much larger dealership with multiple brands that's part of a national chain. So for 20 some odd years, I did business with this one particular dealership. They were less than a mile from my office, so I could drop off my car. If they didn't have a loaner, I could walk to work. It was very convenient. And one day I happened to see a car in the window. And by the way, my original dealership has that brand, but I saw it in the window. It was 12 miles from my home. And I walked in and I said to the salesperson, I'm not going to buy the car, but I just wanted to look at it. He goes, well, why wouldn't you buy the car? Well, it's not really convenient. By the time I would drive here to service my car, it's 45 minutes probably each way, and then I got to pick it up later. He goes, look around. Do you see a waiting room anywhere? And I looked, and there was no waiting room. And he says, we have one. It's behind the wall, but it's small. If you buy a car from me, the next time you step in here will be to buy another car. I will bring you your car, deliver a loaner every time you need service, even if it's just an oil change. You will get the white glove concierge service. By the way, we're going to make a deal, and you can go shop it around and make sure it's competitive. But that's what we do to be different. And you know what? They won me at that moment, and I'm getting ready to buy my third car from them. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's an amazing story. Wow.
I love that word, amazing.
Well, I think it's trademarked with your name. The last thing I want to turn to is we touched on a few of the principles of the book. I don't want to cover all of them, but I want to talk about at the very end of the book, you turn from the learning from an organizational standpoint to an individual standpoint, and I found that quite fascinating as a student of leadership. What should individuals use who want to be better leaders of these 6 principles in this convenience revolution? How can they use it personally to be better at what they do?
Sure. Well, from the standpoint of their outside customer, almost all 6 of these areas can be used individually. Instead of making a customer come to you, you go to them. I'm friends with a dentist who's got an amazing practice, and he's got elderly people, and he says, you know what, don't drive. I'll send a car to have you picked up. At lunchtime, if you want to go in to his office, he'll make sure there's a boxed lunch for you so you don't miss lunch. But as a leader, if you want to create a more convenient culture, it has to start on the inside. What happens on the inside is felt on the outside by the customer. I always talk about internal customer service. Let leadership define what the vision of customer service and experience should be, communicate it, have everybody trained to it. But then number 4 is make sure you model the behavior. Well, if you're going to ask your employees to try to be more convenient and create better solutions for their customers, don't disregard them. Example, when a company puts a new software program in, we're doing this because it's going to be better for a customer experience. Well, it should be good for the employee experience too. It shouldn't be so cumbersome that the employees are going, I hate this. Because guess what? It's going to show through. It's going to be felt by the customer, the frustration. And good systems are good, but if they aren't good for the employees and the customers, I think you have to take a closer look. And I know that's just one example of how leaders need to think about being convenient, not just for customers, but for employees as well.
It's great. Well, you always have so many things to think about. The book is filled with a lot of examples that are thought-provoking, a lot of ideas that you can apply to your own business or to yourself individually. And it is, as I said, it is your next big book. It is amazing. And I think convenience is where it's at. It's where everything is moving. And we have all this technology revolution, and all the revolutions that have happened are really happening for this reason, to be more convenient. And I think that getting rid of all the friction points is the starting point of all this. So thank you for sharing just a few of the thoughts, and I encourage everybody to pick up this amazing book. It is destined to be on the shelves of everyone who really wants to improve their business's strategy and customer relations. So thank you. And I imagine you have a talk you're developing on this. It fits the themes of all the things.
Already done it.
Okay, excellent.
I've done it a number of times, and I've been dropping convenience examples in throughout, but just last week we said, let's do the entire presentation just on concepts out of the convenience revolution. And we knocked it out of the park. So
fantastic.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your ideas with us. Great to see you. I will see you sometime in person soon. And
I hope.
Thanks so much for sharing your ideas with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.